Once again, True Blood is taking its sweet-ass time downloading, and I'm bored, so here's a video, but it's just going to be like a response to a discount Lacey Green. See, I was on Twitter, and I noticed the Yes All Women thing is still a hashtag, surprisingly, and I went through there, and someone was like, because I got 10 catcalls in the space of 30 minutes, and I go through a little conversation pretty much demonstrating that she was lying, and her friends who were backing her up were just her. But fuck, I don't know, stringing that shit together and reading it, fuck that. So I went to YouTube, see if there's anything on Yes All Women, you know, something I could mock in video form. And some of this has been covered by Lacey Green, but this particular girl, she strikes me as being a bit more sincere in believing this particular brand of bollocks, so I am going to be proportionally nicer to her.
So I didn't necessarily want to make this video because I didn't want to deal with the backlash, which ironically is part of the problem.
Yes, you're a brave and noble soldier. I'm glad you told us.
But you guys kept asking me to talk about this, and my audience is mostly teenage girls, so I would hate for them to sit back and just accept the shit that's constantly thrown at females, primarily by males. And I'm a pretty shit role model for everything else, so I might as well not fuck this up.
So you do think that you're a good role model for this kind of stuff? How do I put this? I think people who view themselves as any kind of role model for anyone are unbelievably narcissistic. And I've never said this, but I feel like I should point it out now. If you're one of my viewers, and I'm your role model, you've made a terrible fucking choice.
So here we are. Basically, if you've been living under a rock recently, in LA, this guy, Elliot Shitstain, whatever his last name is, doesn't really matter, went around and killed a bunch of people because he was a 22-year-old virgin and girls wouldn't kiss him, and he thought he deserved better than that and got his revenge. He made a video that's since been taken down, I believe, but the general gist of it was that he felt so entitled to women's bodies and just women in general that he was planning on punishing them for being rejected his whole life. Clearly not mentally stable, but that's not an excuse and that's not the problem here.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it never is. Them being mentally unstable, that's not even a factor, dude. Of course, you know, I made it to 21 being a virgin. I know, embarrassing, right? I kind of feel like another year wouldn't have driven me to mass murder. Maybe I just flatter myself in that regard.
The problem here is male entitlement and misogyny and sexism and just the general belief that men have a right to women's bodies, which is not true. It's a privilege, not a right.
A privilege? Do you listen to yourself when you talk? I mean, do you know what that sounds like? A woman's body, that's a privilege that you gotta earn. Women don't get nothing out of that. It's all just what we reward you with if you're a good boy. A little condescending.
Alongside this is the issue that a large portion of the response to this whole event has been, well, there you go, women, if you deny people sex, they'll kill you. I shouldn't even have to go into everything that's wrong with that statement, but my friend whose YouTube is Old Hot Radio, Ophelia Dagger, made a video about this. Her video will be linked somewhere, but basically what she said in one part of her video was that if you think a man's right to sex is more important than a person's right to their own body, then bend over and let them fuck you.
I like your friend's advice. Any takers on that?
Which is spot on, and I swear to fucking God, if I get one comment saying, well, not all men do this, look, we know. We fucking know.
Well, you know, I'm not making fun of you, but I have never heard somebody pronounce the word no with an R in it. Is that like a regional thing? Does anybody know? Oh yes, also, I have a little bit of a problem with people saying not all men are like that. Well, it is the vastest understatement imaginable. Okay, let's think of men who are like that. 1, Elliot Rodgers. Now name 1 more. Now name 5 more. Let's assume you've managed to successfully name 7. Now think of all the men in the entire history of the United States who weren't like that, and then make yourself a pie chart using these numbers. What's that, you say? The sliver of men who are like that is indistinguishable from a line on your pie chart? Well, gee, it seems like that not all men are like that goes without saying. And even saying it implies that some men, or some significant fraction, or some noticeable fucking fraction of men are like that, when that's simply not the case. Continue.
Even if we didn't know beforehand, we get told so many times every time this discussion comes up that if we didn't know before, we fucking know now.
I'll say, if I were to say 0 men whatso-fucking-ever are like that, it would actually be a lot closer to the truth than not all men are like that. And it would be even more true than whatever the fuck it is you're saying.
But in fact, if your immediate response to a person killing a bunch of people because they wouldn't fuck him is not all men do this, then you're part of the problem.
I agree. If you don't, just roll your eyes and go, Jesus Christ, another one of these dumb bitches, then yes, you are part of the problem. By actually expecting saying shit like that to have any effect whatsoever other than fueling their fury over what the fuck ever. So yes, you are part of the problem, assholes.
Because in saying not all men are like this, instead of being concerned with the actual problem, you're prioritizing the fact that someone insulted your gender over the fact that 6 people got murdered.
So you do freely admit that you insulted their gender, which brings us to the obvious logical corollary here. You care more about your gender-directed insult being countered with an obvious truth? You consider that more important than 6 people being murdered? Yeah, we can play this game all day and all night, sister.
And that, funnily enough, makes you just as bad as the men you're trying to separate yourself from.
Well, point 1, I don't have to separate myself from those men, or let's be a little bit more accurate, that man, which is kind of generous calling Elliot Rodger a man, but I mean, let us not digress on these minutiae. I don't have to separate myself from him. Do you know why? Because we are actually 2 separate entities to begin with. We're not some sort of massive blob that I need to saw down the center of somehow. See, I live here in buttfuck Kansas, and he lives over in LA, probably in some sort of jail. The 2 of us have never even been in a room together. There's no need to separate us. Oh, and the second point, I don't believe in this whole some people are better than others and some people are worse than others thing, because you're a cunt. Now, most people do believe in this some people are better than others paradigm, so let me just get myself comfortable in that worldview. Okay, let's see. In my 33 years of life, I've never murdered anybody. And there have been situations where I could have done so and probably not been blamed for it, and or even gotten away with it. Yeah. So I gotta figure, by this better, worse than construct that everyone lives by, yeah, I think I might just be a little tiny bit better. Call me nuts.
If you're a male saying not all men are like this, stop, because 1, we fucking know, we're not stupid, and 2, you're immediately distancing yourself from the blame to save face, and that's not helpful.
Distancing myself from the blame? I've already done that shtick just in my last clip. And it's not helpful. You know what's really not helpful? Blame. Now, let me digress a bit. Blame, as I see it, comes from a place of pure distilled weakness. And it's not helpful. And anyone who's gone through life and isn't a retard realizes how blame is not helpful. Yeah, I mean, something bad goes wrong, we're all looking for a person to point fingers at and say, look at that, I blame that person, blah 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 blah. And everybody is so busy covering their asses that nothing ever gets sorted out, so fuck you, fuck your blame, it's not helpful.
What's helpful is talking about the actual problem. I saw an awesome quote the other day and it basically said, not all men are monsters, but imagine a bowl of M&Ms and 10% of them are poison. Now go and take a handful and eat them.
I do that every day. What kind of fucking faggot are you risk-averse pussy? Also, if we're gonna, make the numbers come flush, imagine 240,000 M&Ms, one of which is poison. Why don't you go take a handful of M&Ms? Oh, you still won't do it? Well, fuck you. Don't even bother living life. Just live in a closet, you risk-averse pile of toads.
Hashtag yes all women has been blowing up recently, and it's saying basically exactly that. No, not all men are monsters or rapists or abusive, but yes, all women have been the victim of sexism or misogyny, and look, shouldn't that be shocking in itself? every single woman, not like 90%, all women are a victim of this. Literally every single woman, every woman. If you're a woman and you think you're an exception to this, you're not. If you're
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly logical. It's every single woman. And even the ones who tell you straight to your face that they're not, well, they're just fucking stupid. Of course they are. They just don't know it. You know, it's kind of funny, though. When I talk to women who are on that Yes All Women hashtag, they're like, how dare you tell me what my own experiences are? I feel... Never mind, just go on.
If you're a woman and you have a job, or you want to get a job, or you've had a job in the past, then you're immediately affected because you're earning something like 70 cents for every dollar a man makes for doing.
If you have a job, if you've ever had a job, if you're going to apply for a job, the word if tends to imply that it's somehow optional. You're telling me that there are people on this earth for whom that shit is optional, and they're bitching about anything? Fuck you.
Doing the exact same job. If you're a woman and you've ever felt unsafe walking alone or without a man, then you're affected. If you've ever had to use the phrase, I've got a boyfriend, even when you don't, to get a guy to leave you alone, just because they'll respect another man's property more than they respect you, then you're affected, dude. It's also important to know that this is not a one-off event, like this is not an isolated event.
Oh, well, that kind of threw me for a loop. I mean, I just figured, okay, maybe you can name, like, the 7, like this is hypothetical when I was saying it, but you're gonna do it now, right? Because that'll make me look like an ignorant-ass piece of shit. I haven't actually watched this video. It might happen. I'm still gonna post it, though.
This happens on a lot of levels every single day. This particular case is obviously at a very extreme level where some stupid boy has gone and killed a bunch of people because they wouldn't fuck him. But there's the underlying misogyny that's there every day.
And here I was actually worried. I'm silly.
It's there so frequently, in fact, that people pass it off as normal. Spoiler alert, being afraid of 50% of the population is not normal.
In point of fact, if it is so very pervasive that it is occurring every minute of every day with every woman and perpetrated by every man, then it is, ipso facto, normal. Dumbass.
To prove that this is not a one-off event and it's not just a third world problem or just a first world problem, it's global and it's constant. Over 200 girls were abducted and possibly sold into sex slavery because they tried to get an education. A high school girl was stabbed and killed by a guy who asked her to prom because she said no.
I don't mean to nitpick, but that whole sex slavery thing is fundamentally different from the Elliot Rodgers thing. It's not punishing those girls. What it is an unscrupulous profiteer seeing something that he could make a buck at. Like, it's kind of like prostitution, only I am the pimp that doesn't gotta give these women their cut. And also, I don't have to feed them or clothe them once I've sold them. And then there's dudes who, like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't really see the appeal of, like, buying a woman for a sex slave. But, you know, I guess everybody's got a thing. But no, it's not remotely similar to Elliot Rodgers. It'd be sort of like saying when the KKK kills black guys, that's the same thing as the guys taking them to make them slaves. The guys did the slavery thing for economic reasons. People kill black people out of racist reasons because they're dumbass hillbillies who blame those black people for their problems. I know. Fuzzy head, it's hard to keep all of that shit straight.
6 fucking people were killed in the case that I'm talking about in this video, and this all happened within like the past 3 or 4 months alone. There is a direct ass correlation between misogyny and violence and murder. There's no—
I'm sorry, you can't actually have a direct correlation unless you have quantifiable metrics. Okay, murder, it's a little bit easier to quantify, although taking into account the different types of murder, manslaughter. But you know what? I'll give that to you. Murder, quantifiable. We can quantify that. Misogyny. What are the misogyny units? I mean, how do you measure misogyny? Especially when I go to Yes All Women, pretty much everything men do is misogyny. Total misogyny by all men at all times. So, I mean, it seems like misogyny is actually rather constant, given that all men do it. to the greatest extent on every occasion. But back to my original point, no, you can't say that there's a correlation when you can't even tell me what the fuck you're talking about, let alone measure it.
No grey area there, there's no blurred lines, it's very appropriate.
Wow, you just successfully countered my previous point by saying, nuh-uh, no it isn't. Anyway, I think True Blood's probably about done downloading, and in any event, this video is getting really long, so everybody have a nice day.